Okay, now we're going to talk about the competition phase. And in this phase, we're trying to make sure that we're maintaining our current strength. So we've done the form work, we've built up our strength to be able to shoot the distance that we need to shoot for competition. We've built our endurance, so we have the capacity to shoot the amount of arrows we need to compete. And so we're not trying to build more endurance. We're trying to maintain our current strength level. So we don't want to increase poundage or arrow count or make major form changes. The only reason you would make any major form changes at this point is if you're doing something that will either cause you injury, something that has crept in, and now you're doing something that you didn't do before. So anything that that's the only reason why you would make major form changes, is to prevent injury and to help increase consistency that is because of something you're doing now that you didn't do before when you were doing the form changes. And the other aspect is wanting to make sure that we are focusing on mental toughness and building that self-image. Now, if you are familiar with the mental management side of things, we want to make sure that we are building uh, our own understanding and our ability to be able to shoot great scores, that it's like us to shoot great scores, and that we're not sort of suddenly surprised when we have 6 arrows in the yellow, but that we are able to see that and say, yes, this is normal. This is what I'd like to see. This is what I expect to see because I've put in the work to make that happen. So, tools that we are going to talk about as far as to build competitive mindset. So, head-to-head matches are important because they're high intensity training. It's you and another person. So, if you can do this in person, that's ideal. If not, you're out on your own physically and do not have others to be able to shoot with or be able to shoot at your level with. Then doing that virtually will help. It just makes you better. So I always say try to be able to train with people that are better than you. As I say, always shoot up. So you are always shooting with people that are shooting higher scores than you. And maybe they're not, 100, 200 points ahead of you, but maybe they're 50 points. Maybe they're 20 points. They're just enough ahead of you that you think, well, if I just try to make sure I do these next few shots just right, that I might be able to catch up to them. So um, that even if they are 100 points ahead of you, it's still helpful to be able to know what it takes, because you see them do it and it helps you understand that it is possible for you because you see another person doing it. So head-to-head matches really help. Doing other things like Gold Game, um, which I'll get into, and that you can do with people or by yourself, and Potential Game, which you can do with others or by yourself as well. And then also, it's important to be able to do a 72 arrow timed round. So most of the tournaments we're doing are 720 rounds, and for outdoors at least. And lots of times people will say, well, I shot and I practiced and I saw where the arrows are generally going and then I shoot. Well, it's important to be able to keep score on the clock, right? And knowing what that is like for you. Can you shoot those 72 arrows, let's say, with 2 or 3 ends of practice beforehand and then immediately go into scoring? So trying to do tournament simulation essentially, to see how you would do in a tournament environment, and try to do it at the time a tournament would happen. Um, if you're mostly shooting in the evenings, then practice this saying, okay, well, tournament starts at 9 in the morning. Go out there at 9 in the morning, shoot your 2 ends of practice, then go into scoring, and keep a timing. Have a timer to be able to make sure that you can do those 6 arrows in 3 minutes and so forth. So Potential Game. So how do we play that? So essentially, what you're going to do is that you're going to shoot 10 arrows at an end, right? Each time you go up, you're going to shoot 10 arrows, not 6 arrows like you normally would, but 10 arrows at distance. So the idea is that basically you shoot 60 arrows and that equals one 36 arrow round. You score the first 6 arrows and then you score the best 6 arrows for those total of 10 arrows you shot per end. And then what you're trying to do is notice the gap in score between your actual score, the first 6, versus your potential, which is the best 6. at each end. And the purpose of this is to, one, it helps build stamina. So the archer shooting 10 arrows per end instead of 6. So that way you can easily shoot 6 arrows in a tournament. The second part is that you're competing with yourself on each end to ensure that sort of what is the potential versus the actual score is as close as possible. Potential will always be higher than the actual score. That's just mathematically how it works out. And so it helps make sure the third purpose is that needs to be familiar with using spotting scope to be able to know which arrows are able to see which are actual versus potential. Another way to do this is to have those 4 arrows, have 4 arrows with a different colored nock than the other 6 arrows, right? And that makes it a little easier as well. But it shows you what is possible, right? And you could say, okay, well, the progression from there is shooting a 72 arrow round, which is actually 120 arrows, right? You can do timing of 20 seconds on off per arrow, right? Which is kind of like introducing kind of a goal game concept into this, which I'll get into what goal game is in a minute. And then saying, okay, let's change the distance. Well, maybe I'm shooting really well at this distance. Great, go further back, right? If you're doing this at 50 meters, go to 60. If you're doing this at 70 and it's too easy, so to speak, then go to 90. So here's what it looks like in practice. So the green dots are the first 6 arrows, and the purple dots are the last 4 arrows, right? So the actual score is 54, but if we look on the right, what are the best 6, the potential? Well, it's a 58. Now, what this does mentally is shows you that it is possible for you to shoot a 58. It's just a matter of making sure that you shoot those best 6 arrows to be the first 6 arrows. So it always shows you what that looks like. And the closer the potential and actual score is, then you're going to be, that shows really how consistent you are, but also it shows how close you are to shooting your potential. So if you find yourself your first 6 arrows point-wise quite a bit lower than the potential, then it's a matter of like, okay, what can I do to make sure, keep myself mentally aware and present with each shot. Like we talked about earlier in the other videos, the loop, the execute, evaluate, adjust, is that instilled there for each shot? That'll help make sure that our first 6 can be as close to our best 6 as possible. So that's potential game. And you can do this with 10 arrows or 9 arrows or even 8 arrows. I would say that try to keep it no less than 9 arrows, if at all possible. If at any point you're feeling sore, injured, or you feel like your form is breaking down, okay, then maybe potential game is not something you can do right now until you can help build up your stamina. But again, the idea is that your stamina should already basically be there because now you're in a kind of competition phase. So next we're going to talk about gold game. So there's different kind of versions. So the one in blue is gold game, that is a 9 goal game, and then there's 9.5 goal game, and then there's 10 goal game. So that's the progression. So everybody starts off with 9 goal game. And the idea is that you get a point when you shoot a 9 or a 10. You get 0 points for an 8, and you get minus 1 point for a 7 or lower. And if you don't shoot the arrow within the 15 seconds allotted for your time to shoot 1 arrow, so you get 15 seconds per arrow. So when the buzzer goes to shoot 1 arrow, you should have your arrow already loaded on the bow, and that gives you enough time to be able to go up and complete a shot. However, it does not give you enough time to let down. So that's why you got to be really pay attention to your process, what you're doing, be consciously aware of how you pick up the bow, how you load, how you anchor, and so forth, and then mentally committing to the shot. If you don't get the shot off in that 15 seconds, it's minus 2 points. So it's better to get a shot done than not get the shot done. The goal is to get to 50 points and then move on to the next goal game. So if you can get 50 points in 50 arrows, great. That's too easy for you. You need to do 9.5 game, and so on and so forth. Um, the arrows are usually always shot at competition distance, and you're only going to shoot about 6 arrows per end only, right? Because we don't want you wearing yourself out. So you would have 15 seconds to shoot one arrow, and then you have 15 seconds rest. And then you go up and shoot the next arrow for 15 seconds. So you have an interval of 15 on, 15 off. And this helps make sure you pace yourself and learning how to mentally keep yourself stable, so that way you know, okay, when I'm shooting, I need to be able to turn myself mentally on. And then when I'm not, I need to be able to turn it off, right? So if you find yourself doing this and you're completely mentally drained and exhausted, ask yourself, what is my mental engagement like? Am I just switching it on mentally the entire time I'm up there? Or have I learned how to kind of turn off my focus and turn it on only when I need it? So here's an example of a goal game and end score. So this archer, if they're shooting 9 goal game, they are shooting, they have 4 points here, right? They've gained some points, but then they lost some points. 9.5 goal game is a little bit different. Again, you get a point for a 9s and 10s, but you get minus 1 point for 8s and 7s, or anything in the red. And then 10 goal game, you only get points for shooting 10s, 9s or 0s, and 8s and 7s, and anything lower than that is a -1. So that kind of gives you an idea, if the archer shot this score, which goal game would they be using, right? So you wouldn't do 10 goal game unless you got everything in the yellow pretty much all the time. You wouldn't do 9.5 goal game unless you also got everything yellow, but maybe you get a few more 9s than you would if you do 10 goal game. A 9 goal game is fine if you only ever occasionally shoot an 8. Now you can extrapolate this and do sort of different versions of this to shoot maybe, say, 7 rings, 6 rings, and so forth. But the idea is to try to get archers to focus and be committed to their shot and drive through each shot. So here's an example. If we kind of put that over a 720 round, you get an arrow average of an 8.7. That's 627, right? So it's not that bad, actually. You do this goal game, you might actually be surprised how your scores would improve doing this, even if you are technically losing some points here and there. And also, as far as competition phase, you want to be able to look at the tournaments that you have throughout the year, wherever you may live, and see, like, how do you use those tournaments to help build up to the next level? So if your goal is to shoot a regional or world level tournament, well, how do the national tournaments help you build up to that? How do the county tournaments help you from there? So everybody would start off at kind of a club level, let's say, then see how you are able to compete at a county level, then a national, then a regional, and then at a world level. So think about what your goals are competition wise, and how does that change over time? So your first couple years you're competing, may just trying to be able to get from club level to national, but eventually you get to regional level, and eventually maybe even world level. And is shooting on those club tournaments something that maybe served you early in your career, something that doesn't really help serve you now, right? Does that do those, if you're preparing for a world level tournament, does shooting in your club level tournament help you prepare, right? It may not, right? Maybe something fun to do from a social standpoint, but from a competitive standpoint, it may not, probably won't serve you as much as saying, okay, I need to shoot at more of a national level. If you're in an area where you don't have a lot of national tournaments, but there are like a lot of club tournaments, and you know the quality of the tournament, or maybe the quality of the kind of archers that you would be competing with is so much lower than where you're at, then saying, you may have to refactor, reconfigure what kind of tournaments you're shooting at locally, and say, well, maybe there's some other areas, maybe there's another country next door that has higher level national tournaments that I can compete at, that help me, elevate my ability, right? As I was saying before, always shoot up. Try to be able to shoot with people that are better than you, rather than people you go in and you are going to completely, beat them by 100 points, right? That doesn't help make you better. It boosts your ego, but it doesn't help make you better as an archer. So always look at what are competitions that help push you and make you better. And then additionally, making sure that you set a process for the goals for each tournament level, right? So your club level tournament, what are your goals? And process goals, I mean, are goals that where you focus on what are you trying to accomplish with your form, with how you shoot, right? You can't always have control over if you're going to win first place or if you're going to be shooting a certain score, right? But you have control over how you shoot and what kind of process you have. So always make sure you go into a tournament, regardless of club level, right? Whether it's club level, county, national, regional, world, always want to have a process goal. And then after each tournament, you want to do a kind of a retrospective to be able to say, okay, what did I do well? What did I learn? And what would I do differently for the next tournament? So if you're finding yourself saying, well, I have this big tournament I'm trying to prepare for in August of this year. Okay, what other tournaments are you going to help you prepare for that? You don't want to go through the entire season, outdoor season, competition season, not shooting any tournaments except for the big one you're going to. That would be a big mistake. You want to make sure that you can shoot other tournaments along the way where you can figure out what you're doing well, things you can learn, and then be able to do differently for the next tournament. And that all of that will help prepare you for that big tournament you really wanting to perform at, let's say in August. And I would say when we talk about what to do differently, it doesn't necessarily mean that you would shoot differently. Maybe it's like you would stay at a different hotel next time. It may mean that you get there the day before instead of the morning of the competition to go shoot, right? So consider not just your shooting, but also the logistical aspects as well, as you know, transportation, housing, food, all of that, right? That all makes a difference. It all adds up.